Last week we had this tragic incident in which a Mercedes car was traveling in the Ahmedabad-Mumbai highway. Passengers who were in the back seat and included Cyrus Mistry, who was head of Sapurji Palonji Group, got killed when this car hit a road barrier. With this came the debate that whether the rear seat passengers should also be mandatorily wearing seat belts and whether car manufacturers will be mandated by law to include seat belt warnings like they do for the front seat and front passenger seat in the rear seat. Seat belts always have been taken as one of the key safety devices in passenger cars. We are not going to talk about seat belts utility because that is all proven and the medical evidence is there and statistical evidence is there. I know for sure many colleagues who are even traveling in city traffic suffering, if not fatal, but serious injuries even in the city by not wearing seat belts. So my appeal to all of you is to wear seat belts. But today we're going into an interesting aspect, that is discussing and chronicling how the seat belts evolved. Seat belts in its most primitive format came into being in the year 1804 when an English engineer whose name was George Cayley first designed a seat belt which was in the format of a lap belt for keeping the pilots of glider planes in place. For cars, the journey came much later, that is nearly 80 years later in 1885. An American engineer whose name was Edward J. Claghorn, he designed a belt for keeping the passengers safe while riding New York taxis. New York taxi drivers at that point in time were known to be rash drivers, so that prompted Claghorn to design a lap belt in case of sudden braking, kept passengers a little safer and away from hitting the windshield or hitting the front seat. In 1921, the next innovation came, the child seat, or keeping the child in place through a lap belt or a belt tied to the seats came, because if the child sits in the mother's lap or the father's lap as somebody else drives, then there is a chance that in case of a sudden impact, the child will fly and come in the way of danger. In 1930, doctors of United States started projecting statistics that how lap belts or the seat belts saving a large number of lives, and started lobbying that car manufacturers should be directed to bring seat belts as one of the accessories. But only in 1949, NAS Motors, a leading manufacturer of cars in the United States, decided that out of the total number of over 100,000 cars, about 40,000 cars will be fitted with seatbelts. Comical thing about this great initiative was that most Americans in 1949 thought seatbelts to be a great nuisance and rejected it outright. So what happened was that in the 40,000 cars that were able to provide seatbelts, most of the buyers requested the dealerships to remove the seatbelts and provide them without seatbelts, and at the end only 1,000 out of those 40,000 cars could be rolled out of the dealerships with seatbelt being installed. In 1954, Sports Car Club of United States made it mandatory for race or speed car drivers to wear seatbelts. In 1955, the National Safety Council voted for installation of seatbelts in all vehicles, but it was not a law till then. In 1958, Swedish engineer by the name of Nils Bohlin invented what is called the three-point seatbelt, that is shoulder and two sides of the lap. And this was first installed in Swedish car Volvo. 10 years from then, in 1968, America made it legally compulsory to have seat belts in all the cars. It was not yet compulsory for the passengers or the driver to wear seat belt. It was only the manufacturers who were required to provide seat belts. In 1970, Australia was the first country to enact a law making it compulsory or legally punishable. It took almost 25 years after that, that is in 1995, all states in the United States made a law that seatbelt is compulsory. Now for countries like India, which were latecomers to wide-scale passenger car manufacturing, many of the cars I remember even up to the late 80s didn't have seatbelts. When modern manufacturing, international car manufacturers started entering India in a big way, that seatbelts became mandatory. Today, without wearing seatbelts, if you are driving, you are punishable for ticketing. And with recent Cyrus Mistry incident, a move has been initiated by Government of India to make rear seatbelt is to be mandatory, to not only punish people who are not wearing rear seatbelts, but also to integrate the car's warning system or alert system. As we can see, it has taken from 1805 nearly 215 years till today for understanding this basic necessity of keeping one safe in the car travel. Accidents do happen many times because of things that are not in our control, but I believe for us to click the seat belts is in our control, so don't forget to wear your seat belts. Thank you very much.